They now taunt, humiliate, degrade the prisoners in front of each other.
From experiments in brainwashing to testing treatments and toxins on unwitting subjects, these terrifying human experiments are being dragged into the light.
You might have seen this photo of a mouse with a human ear floating around on the internet, thinking it's Photoshop, but it's indeed real. Yep, scientists grew a human ear on a mouse.
Up first are the Weipholm experiments. In the mid-30s, Sweden was struggling. Not with fascism like the rest of Europe, but with cavities. No one really knew how cavities happened, despite them being everywhere. But people had an idea that sugary foods may have been a cause. So what did the Swedish government do? They force-fed intellectually disabled patients at Weipholm Hospital with hyper-sugary treats. It became clear pretty quickly that sugar was very bad for the teeth, but the results were actually restricted for years because the sugar industry no longer wanted this study, which it had funded, to be published. It turns out the government also had no idea this experiment was happening, as it had been labeled as a vitamin experiment, except the vitamins were exchanged for sugar 2 years into the study. Next is Camera. Camera, or the Cell, was the central research facility for the Soviet Union's toxin programs. And like many things within the Soviet Union, Camera combined cutting-edge science with the inhuman cruelty of a lifetime of propaganda. For 70 years, from just after the revolution to the end of the Soviet Union, this secret laboratory would take prisoners from gulags to test on, going through thousands of inmates who, obviously, had no say in their treatment. Numerous compounds were tested in the search of an untraceable, untastable, unsmellable toxin, eventually coming up with K2, which has been rumored to be the toxin of choice for the current Russian government ever since, being used allegedly on numerous Russian nationals such as Alexei Navalny. Next are the Porton-Down tests. From 1916 to 1989, the full length of the Cold War, the British government experimented on 20,000 British soldiers, testing different gases, toxins, chemicals, and biological agents. As one story among tens of thousands, in 1950, RAF engineer Ronald Madison was given a 200 milligram dose of sarin, a potent nerve agent. He had been told that he was testing a cure for the common cold. He did not survive. It wasn't only British soldiers either. Thousands of Indian soldiers were also experimented on against their knowledge within India. The full consequences of this illegal human experimentation hasn't fully been revealed, as some soldiers likely had little or minor impacts, while others perished on the spot. Most soldiers likely had an experience somewhere in the middle. Next is MK-Ultra. The Central Intelligence Agency is one of the most shadowy and unethical institutions in the nation and possibly the world, and MK-Ultra has come to exemplify exactly why they got that reputation. MK-Ultra was designed as an interrogation and brainwashing study and spent 20 years, that we know of, using every technique and method known to man to shatter people's minds and make them talk. This ranged from psychotropic substances and hypnosis to physical harm and repeated SA. In Germany, Japan, and the Philippines, they even established secret camps where they experimented on suspected spies and other expendables. The details of this program are utterly horrific, but even worse is that they don't even work. Oh, the CIA got very adept at shattering people's minds and breaking their connection with reality. It's just that people with shattered minds are completely useless for gaining information. They won't even realize that they're making things up. They're just so desperate to appease their captors that they will say anything to make the interrogation stop. This is why practically no usable information has ever been recovered this way, and actual information is gained through social engineering and rapport building.
And we're starting off this list with rabbit-human hybrids. Back in 2003, scientists in Shanghai successfully fused human cells with rabbit eggs in a laboratory dish. And the crazy thing was, they survived until they were disposed of and harvested for their stem cells. So it's unclear how long they could have survived and whether the thing would have actually reached past the embryo stage. We could have had a real half-person, half rabbit monster living amongst us. They'd be about 20 years old now. Not sure why the scientists didn't try this again and actually let the thing live. Maybe it just would have been too freaky, or maybe they did try it again and there are a whole bunch of rabbit people hiding away somewhere in China just waiting to be unleashed into the world to do God knows what. Imagine how freaky a rabbit person would be though. A mangy, almost hairless rabbit with a human-y kind of face hopping around. Human-y, that's a new word. At our number 9 spot we have the chimpanzee. We're gonna chill in China for a little bit longer here. This apparently happened back in 1967. This story is not 100% verified, but according to 2 scientists in Shenyang, they were able to impregnate a chimpanzee with the seed of a human, which I very much hope done artificially. They were hoping to create a more advanced form of chimpanzee that could hopefully learn to speak, and were even hoping to send it off and do experiments in space. I think the more advanced form of chimpanzee is us. I think that's what we are. But anyway, apparently the chimp did get pregnant, now carrying a human-chimp hybrid in its belly, but the creature was never born as their lab and work was destroyed by revolutionaries, and the chimp died while 3 months into its pregnancy. Not sure about this story. On one hand, this all sounds pretty far-fetched, but on the other, as I said, we do share about 98.8% of our DNA with chimps, so stranger things have happened. Number 8, mice with human livers. So this is an interesting case because I'm actually kinda on board with it. It's a great alternative to testing on chimpanzees. I shall explain. In 2010, researchers at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies in California were able to genetically modify a mouse so that it had an almost human liver. The aim of the game here was to create an animal they could test on for diseases that only humans and chimpanzees get. In the past, we've only been able to test stuff like hepatitis B and C and malaria on chimps, so being able to use mice instead, still not ideal, but it might be the best alternative. Basically, the goal is to infect these genetically modified mice with whatever disease they're testing on, and then attempt to treat them. Could make for pretty big strides in the medical field. At number 7, let's take a step away from actual science for a moment and discuss something a little bit more mysterious. The cryptid known as Owlman. I was considering putting the Mothman at this spot, but we've all heard about the Mothman plenty of times before. The first reported account of this terrifying creature dates back to 1976 in the village of Maunan in Cornwall. 2 young girls had encountered the beast, describing what they saw to be an almost man-sized owl with glowing red eyes. It had been seen hovering above the church tower. Since that fateful day, more and more reports began swooping in about this mysterious owl creature, and till this day we still don't know what this thing is or was. Was it just a hoax, or possibly a really big owl? Probably, but it could have been a human-owl hybrid, which was the result of some horrendous scientific experimentation. You know, that's also a probability. So now we're going to talk about another mouse-related hybrid. This time it's mice with human brains. Yeah, it turns out we actually got pretty close to making Pinky in the Brain a reality, because I think sometimes scientists just go, why not? Let's just do it. Back in 2014, scientists were able to imbue several lab mice with millions of human brain cells. The mice lived though. After about a year, almost every cell in their brains had been replaced by human ones. Now, my human brain automatically goes to these mice now performing complex math equations and playing checkers with the scientists, but that's not what happened. Turns out their memory just got way better. The way scientists tested this was by playing a certain noise, then they'd send a small electric shock through the mice, and the next time they played whatever that noise was, they took note of how the mice reacted, bracing for the incoming electric shock, and they were able to determine that the memory of these mice was 4 times stronger than that of a normal mouse.
Next up at number 9 now, we have the human-pig chimera. In January 2017, scientists announced they had created a real-life human-pig hybrid. The embryos they made were only a tiny bit human, less than 0.001%. The rest was all pig, but crucially, it was a hybrid. hybrid. They only lasted for 28 days, but the scientists felt it was a step in the right direction. They hoped that eventually animals could even grow entire human organs ready for use. How does this one make you guys feel? I know it can be pretty divisive. At number 8 now, we have the Ningyo. The Ningyo is the Japanese equivalent of a mermaid, and in one special shrine, people claim they have a specimen. It's been dated to over 1,400 years old and bears a striking resemblance to the artwork depicting these creatures. Some visitors to the shrine claim that it's made out of stone or wood, but that's incorrect. It is genuine organic matter. Here's the thing though, other people say it's most likely advanced taxidermy, with people splicing them together after death. What do you guys think though?
Next is Canotrovan. A lot of African nations have a pretty strong fear of doctors. Now, this isn't because of superstition or some fear of the modern. It is in fact very, very, very justified. In 1996, just as an example, Pfizer went to Nigeria during a meningitis outbreak and falsified a letter of approval for human trials. They gave 100 youths a very weak dose of the leading meningitis treatment, and another 100 used their own antibiotic, Trovan, trying to skew the numbers in their favor. 11 youths would perish in the study, and many others suffered long-lasting health effects. Pfizer knew that the antibiotic was known to cause rather severe side effects, especially in juveniles, but leapt into human experimentation as soon as possible. They took advantage of the fear of a disadvantaged population during an outbreak that took 12,000 lives, and told them either you participate in our study, which we won't fully disclose all the risks for, or you get no treatment at all. Next is the Beecher paper. In 1966, Henry Beecher, an accomplished doctor and researcher in his own right, published an analysis of 22 papers. These papers had all been widely published in widely read and respected medical journals. They were also all on incredibly unethical studies. In one study published, the subject was told they were going to be injected with some cells, while not being told these were cancer cells that they were being subjected to. The publishing of this analysis finally brought to the public's attention, for the first time really, the massive and rampant issue of unethical human experimentation. Experiments that were being published by respected researchers in world-renowned journals. The Beecher paper would lead to the establishment of the first ethics boards and committees, which seems like an obvious no-brainer now, but simply didn't exist in the 1960s. And finally, our frostbite tests. Have you ever wondered why we know so much about frostbite and how to treat it? Well, you have the horrific Unit 731 and Hisato Yoshimura to thank. Actually, please don't thank them. They do not deserve your respect. They took hundreds of people and experimented by freezing different parts solid and then trying out different techniques to thaw and heal them. Heal is a bit of a stretch, as the vast majority of test subjects simply had utterly inhumane and horrific things done to them. Hisato Yoshimura was despised even by other members of Unit 731. These are people who are testing fire throwers and diseases on live subjects, and Hisato was so brutal even they called him a cold-blooded animal. For the rest of his life, Hisato would show zero remorse for the hundreds of lives he took, and was granted clemency by the United States in exchange for his research. Those were terrifying human experiments the government tried to hide from you. I hope you learned something new, and I'll see you next time.
Now, the proper name of it, the Vincanti mouse, was a laboratory mouse from 1996 who had what looked like a human ear grown on their back. Now, the ear was actually an ear-shaped cartilage structure grown by seeding cow cartilage cells into biodegradable ear-shaped molds and then implanted under the skin of the mouse with an external ear-shaped splint to maintain the desired shape. Then the cartilage naturally grew by itself within the restricted shape and size. So no, the mouse could not hear out of that ear and listen better, but hey, it's pretty cool that they were able to do this. Now we have the robot monkey. Now, robot monkey literally sounds like the name of some sci-fi movie, but it's actually something that happened in real life. In May of 2008, experiments were conducted by Dr. Schwartz, a professor of neurobiology at the University of Pittsburgh, to teach a monkey to feed itself by using its thoughts in order to control a 4-degree of freedom robotic arm with shoulder joints, elbow, and a simple gripper. Now, they gave the monkey 22 brain implants, one each in the hand and arm areas of its motor cortex. These monitored the firing of motor neurons and sent information to a computer, which translated the patterns into commands for the robotic arm. As a result, the monkey was able to manipulate the arm, and it learned to use it to reach for food pellets, press buttons, and even twist knobs. Now, I know this sounds a little crazy, but it's actually a good thing that that was happening. By putting the brain in direct communications with machines, researchers will one day be able to engineer and operate advanced prosthetics in a natural way to help paralyzed people live a close to normal life. Now, Vladimir Demikov was a pioneer in transplantology, as he even coined the term. Now, after transplanting a number of vital organs between dogs, he wanted to take it a step further and create what we called the multi-dog. Now, Vladimir removed most of the body of a small puppy and grafted the head and forelegs to the neck of an adult dog. Now, the big dog's heart pumped enough blood for both heads, and when the multi-dog regained consciousness after the operation, the puppy's head woke up and yawned. Now, the big head gave it a puzzled look and tried first to shake it off, but remarkably though, both dogs kept their own personalities post-surgery. Though handicapped by having almost no body of its own, the puppy was as playful as any other puppy, and when the host dog got thirsty, the puppy got thirsty. When the laboratory grew hot, both host dog and puppy put out their tongues and panted to cool off. Now, unfortunately, the experiment wasn't a total success. After 6 days of life together, both heads in the common body died. Now, Ilya Ionovich was a Russian biologist born in 1870 who worked in artificial insemination. Ilya then wanted to get the sperm of animals and put them into different species to see what would happen. But in 1910, he told a gathering of zoologists that he thought it could be possible to create a human-ape hybrid. In 1926, he and Serge Vonaroff transplanted a human ovary into a chimp before attempting to inseminate her with human sperm. Now, he attempted this 2 more times without success, so then he pitched an alternative approach to take sperm from chimpanzees and implant it into African women without their knowledge. Now, thankfully, the French governor said no to the idea, but Ilya then traveled to Abkhazia with 20 apes and was able to convince people to be a part of this experiment. 5 women or more volunteered, but no ape survived long enough at the ape nursery, and though he had women, Ilya found himself out of sperm. Now, before he could ship more apes, the Soviet Academy of Sciences heard about his plans to inseminate women in Africa, and all support for the project was taken away. Yeah, this is probably one of the most disturbing experiments I've ever heard about, and I'm glad that he was stopped because, oh my god. Yeah, I think some of these scientists needed to be stopped because some of these were absolutely crazy.
At number 5, we have human brain cells in monkeys. So Chinese scientists made headlines recently by successfully adding human brain cells to monkeys. This breakthrough involved injecting human stem cells to monkey embryos, leading to the creation of these kind of chimeric embryos, organisms composed of cells from these 2 different species. The goal here was to gain insight into brain development and disorders like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's diseases by studying how the human cells integrated and interacted with the monkey brains. By looking at how the injected human cells behaved and developed in the monkey brains, they hoped to gain more insight into brain functions and diseases that could be otherwise unattainable through traditional means. But it doesn't take a genius to realize that the creation of animals, especially monkeys with human brain cells, is a pretty unnerving idea. If you've ever seen Planet of the Apes, you know how things could turn out here. Next up, we have reptilians. The presence of reptilian humanoids seeping their way into our society has been a relatively well-known conspiracy theory for years. There are some folks that are just 100% convinced that a number of celebrities and politicians and other powerful members of our society are reptilian creatures in disguise. Folks report their eyes changing briefly, showing their true lizard-like pupils below the surface of their nearly flawless human skin suits, or their smooth skin starting to morph into the scaly-like texture that reptiles are so renowned for. And where are these creatures said to come from? Some say outer space, and some say there are cabals of reptilians living in layers deep beneath the surface of the earth, organizing themselves to enact world domination on the inferior species above, which is us. And at number 3, we have cows with human milk. Back in 2011, Chinese scientists were able to genetically produce a herd of 300 cows able to produce milk that was 80% similar to that of human breast milk. It contained nutrients not found in cow milk that are essential to human beings, and they were hoping to mass produce this hybrid cow human milk, getting it on the shelves of every grocery store. Suffice to say, it never really took off. Now, I don't know how this was accomplished. I am not a scientist, surprisingly, but I do know that this is something I would never drink. This isn't the only case of cows being modified with human genes to make their milk more closer to ours. This same process was also used on goats in Argentina, and this type of milk has been tested on pigs, and apparently they were fine, but I don't know about you. I just get a little pukey at the idea of chugging down milk, even just normal milk, by the way, but genetically modified milk from a lab cow, I'll pass on that one, thank you. And like I said, I'd pass on standard milk too. I just don't think we're supposed to really be consuming the stuff in high quantities like past infancy. But I don't know, there's a lot of debates about that. Number 2, the Lovelin Frog. Oh boy, do I love the Lovelin Frog. Yes, we're back in decrypted territory here. I can't help it. This weird and wacky creature is one of the most famous cryptids in the fine state of Ohio. This is not just one cryptid though. It's a group of 3 to 4 foot tall humanoid frog creatures. Now, the legend started gaining steam back in 1955 when a local man claimed to have seen not 1, not 2, but 3 of these froggish beings just hanging out under a bridge. He described them as being hairless, with large mouths, with no lips, and with a greenish tint to their skin. They also had a wand-like device that emitted a strange smell of almonds. In 1972, a police officer also claimed to have seen a large frog creature, saying he actually shot at one of them as it leapt across the road. So, did someone slip something into that man's drink in 1955? Was he just making it up? Did the cop in 1972 just fire at a very large lizard? Very possible. Or scientists were doing some nefarious frog experiments over there in Ohio. And knowing what I've learned about Ohio over my time spent doing this job, that would not surprise me in the slightest. Coming in at number 1 though, we have pigs with human organs. So this is something that's being continually researched. And it's actually pretty interesting and potentially very useful because the purpose of this is to create farm animals that can be harvested for important organs like human hearts and lungs, which could be life-saving for people needing replacements. Not sure if I'd want my new heart coming from a mutated pig monster, but I guess the chips are down. You gotta take what you can get. Japanese scientist Hiromatsu Nakuichi is one of the leading scientists on this project and is operating in the United States to help bring it to reality. They've been able to create hundreds of pig-human embryos, but none of them with the amount of human DNA necessary to accomplish their goals. But their research continues, and I'm confident that one day we'll be able to visit a disgusting pig person farm with fresh new organs we can choose from in order to keep ourselves alive for as long as we want. That's the future that I want.
And finally at number 1, we have the human mouse. The results of this experiment were announced in 2015. Scientists thought they had found the DNA sequence responsible for making human brains bigger than other animals. So they took the human gene for this and the chimpanzee version of the gene and put them into mice. The ones with the chimpanzee brain DNA didn't really have much bigger brains, but the ones with human sequences grew 12% bigger. The mice would not have gone on to achieve human levels of intelligence, but these human-mouse hybrid brains could be a step in that direction.